Hi, everyone. It is Lindsay Baker with Action Hour. I am back. I've been away for a couple of weeks, but the exciting news is that I am here with Georja Umano and her friend Romeo, who is actually the inspiration for what I call creative activism. Georja is an award-winning actor, award-winning author, probably actor too. She's an actor, producer, writer, director, and she is actually working currently on a screenplay for her new book, Terriers in the Jungle. Now, this book is amazing. Georja, thank you so much for being here. We have so much to talk about. How are you doing today? And
Great.
how is
Thanks
Romeo?
for having us. Romeo's
Oh, I'm
good.
so happy to see you. So tell us a little bit. Let's jump in and tell people, if you could, describe what the book is about, if you would, for my audience. Just a little general beginning till we get their feet wet.
Sure. Well, the book is inspired by real life experiences. I'm a big elephant lover, and for years I was working with elephant activism in Los Angeles, helping to organize marches, speak at marches, and then also write about them in Splash Magazine. And I went to Kenya several times to go on safari and meet the elephants. And I got in touch with the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust and all the baby elephants. And I just kept falling deeper in love. And the last time I was there, I said to my husband, let's move here. I want to stay here and be with elephants and help elephants. And surprisingly, he said, okay, because he's a writer to Gerald Everett Jones. He's written several novels. And he thought, well, I can write anywhere. So we packed up, we came home, we got our two little rescue dogs, Romeo and Roxie. Roxie is downstairs right now. Maybe she'll come up later. And we started our trek to Kenya. And I didn't know, I know a lot of conservationists over there because I had written about them and met them. So I thought somebody's going to help me find a position where I could be around elephants and help elephants. And it turned out that was a little difficult because the government was putting, they weren't allowing work permits in conservation at that time, especially for foreigners, white people. I think they wanted to have more native peoples involved. And but I was offered a job as environmental director of Africa Child, which was a rescue group for young girls who had been raped. And they were from very destitute backgrounds and they had nowhere to go. They had babies. So at first I said, no, I'm going to keep trying to work with elephants. But then later I realized that this was a great thing to do because these girls come from the rural areas. And this is where there's a lot of human animal conflict because there's a population explosion in Africa. And so what they do is they build farms on the migratory routes of the animals. So when the elephant comes marching on his usual route, all of a sudden there's some fruit trees and stuff. So he starts eating, and then he destroys their crops, and then they consider them to be pests. And that's when they start shooting them with the poison arrows and so on. So I thought, wow, these girls, they never go back to school when they get raped. But there's a lot of girls over there who unfortunately do get raped. And then there's this whole population of young women who are uneducated and they have babies. And I realized this is an untapped resource for them. If I could get these girls so that they love elephants and then and learn a lot about nature, then they can go back to their communities and become leaders. So that's what I told the girls. And I was able to use all my skills with these girls from acting. We did improv. We saw nature movies. We went on field trips, and they had never even eaten in a restaurant. These girls are so poor. We don't realize over here the poverty that people live in, a lot of people.
Yes.
And so it was a real pleasure for me to open their eyes. And the first time they actually saw elephants, I got special permission from the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust to take them to one of the outposts, and they met the baby elephants and they got to help feed them, and they were just in love, just like me.
Well,
And
that's what I love about your book, because it works on so many levels. It's a book for adults and it's also a book for children because it teaches about compassion, but it's also teaches us to take a look at the world from animals' point of view. And you do that so creatively and cleverly by using your two dogs who went on the trip with you, Romeo and Roxy, and the whole entire story is written from their eyes and in their words. And the narrative is just amazing. But it really made me feel initially, I think everyone can benefit from this book because I felt, even though I feel that I'm pretty good to my 5 companion animals, I could have more compassion. Like you showed us that animals actually do understand so much more, be it whatever species, they understand so much more than we know. And
right,
there's so many levels we could talk about. So from the animal to the girls, you made this connection and it's wonderful. So yeah, so from that work you were doing there, how did you get to writing the book? When I read the book, and I have to tell everyone that it took me literally, I sat down with it and I read it in one day, because if you're coming on the show, I want to have read the book. I read it in one day. It was an easy read. It was a wonderful story. I'm going to read it again and I'm recommending it to people. I think it's a great Christmas gift. But I've kind of felt hook, sink, and ladder, or whatever you say, how that saying goes, thinking that all those things were true, but they're really inspired, and we probably should let people know that. Do you want to talk a little bit about the book now and kind of get into that, how that all came about? I mean, here you are working with the girls, and then suddenly this, you come to write this book, so.
Well, I had my dogs with me, and we had a lot of difficulties with the dogs. Over there, they're not used to people having such pampered little dogs with them. And they usually only have dogs for security, and they live outside. So everywhere we went, they were a big to-do about my dogs. And there was also a lot of dog theft. So we had to be careful all the time. And then a lot of people would just come up to me and say, "Oh, cute dogs, give me one." And I'd say, "Why should I give you one?" And they'd say, "Well, you have 2." Or something like that, like that's how it went. And so anyway, my dogs met wildlife. They did. And they had adventures of their own. And so I thought it was so charming, the things that they went through. So I just started writing them down because, I'm a writer. And then it just developed into a book, a story. And I just kept working on it for about 2 years. And then that's what I finally came up with the whole idea, the whole story. And it's definitely based on our adventures. A lot of the things in there actually happened very close to the way it's written. And some things were, sort of extrapolated like a story. You build, and you make a story. But it is, like I said, the story, the things about Africa are true. The things that happened, a lot of them happened, and the things that didn't really happen could have happened.
Right. So can I just ask you, or would this ruin it? I'll just ask one time. Did one of the pups actually get kidnapped? Or you don't have to answer if you
I really don't want to talk about that because I don't want to ruin the story for anybody. But it is
okay. I understand. Yeah, it is a big deal. But the fact that does happen quite a bit. What do you think when the dogs get taken like that? What do you think happens? Because you said that, on different incidences, friends even warned you about taking dogs over there overseas. So when they steal them, what do you think the fate of the dogs are in real life?
Well, I think in the case of my dogs, which are that, when we were in Nairobi, which is a big city, people would stop their car when I walk my dogs. People just don't walk their dogs much, and they'd say, "Oh, are you selling those dogs?" They thought I was displaying them to sell them. And I said, "No, they're my pets." And they said, "Well, are they going to have babies? Can I buy their babies?" And I said, "No, they're pets. They're just my pets." "You mean you're not going to sell them and you're not selling their babies?" "No." And they would be, wow, they couldn't believe it. But you know what happened? I think the dogs actually did influence the culture, because there was a cab driver that we had. We didn't have a car, so we had to get rides everywhere. And there was this one driver who really liked the dogs. And he was astounded also, because everywhere we went, we took them with us. And then in their little dog beds, they had 2 little dog beds. We brought them from home. And he just thought it was interesting that we took them with us. But I wasn't going to leave them alone anywhere. I didn't feel comfortable doing that. And
so they're looked at almost like a trophy or a toy.
Yeah.
And I guess we have to have compassion, though. I mean, I'm sure, and I think this comes out in the book, because we live in such a privileged life that we don't, the fact that shocks them that you would put that much, attention and money and resources into a pet, because they don't have that for themselves. I mean, so like you say, the mindset is so different.
Yes, but this one person I was telling you about, in the course of the time we were in Nairobi, his little boy found a stray dog and wanted to bring it home. And he talked to me about it. I said, "Yes, I think that would be a great idea." And I went out and I bought him a dog bed and a leash and everything. And then as a little time went by, and he said, "Well, they're getting used to having them in the house and everything, and they think they're going to keep them." And so then about a month later, he was going to see his relatives in another part of the country. And it was like a family trip, and they brought the dog with them. And he said, everybody in the town said they were crazy. Why did they bring a dog? But then by the end of their visit, they all fell in love with the dog, and they all wanted to get indoor dogs.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that is teach by example. It's just, that's the way to go. And hopefully that'll continue. Maybe we want to talk about the elephants and the wild animals that you encountered and all of that. But I do want to stop for a moment and talk a little bit about your activism. And I know that you worked on the Free Billy campaign, which we've covered several times. And we actually do a vigil for elephants once a year with several of the organizations that you mention in your book, such as the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. And so I just wanted to touch base on them a little bit and your work with them, and maybe I can show their website for folks that are not aware. So would you mind talking about that for a moment?
Sure. Well, I've been inspired by many other people and their groups and everything. So, that's actually how I got involved with elephants, was when the Free Billy movement a long time ago. This was like just around 2000 maybe. There was a big movement to free Billy. I don't remember the exact year, but it was big. We took it all the way to the city council, and they had a courtroom type of thing. And on one side of the room, the whole room was filled with animal activists, and we had Cher as a spokesperson. On the other side was all filled with zoo people, and they had Betty White.
I heard that.
Yeah, it was very dramatic. And even Dr. Joyce Poole came over from Kenya to testify. And, it was really big. It was really fascinating. And
but how did they, if you don't mind me asking, how did they justify the fact that elephants are herd animals, travel, virtually miles and miles and miles every day as a normal part of their foraging, and they're a normal part of their activity with their group, their herd? How do they justify, and Betty White, God rest her soul, she did some very good things for animals, but how did they justify the zoo thing in that argument? I'm just
They don't
curious.
believe that. They think because they love the animals and they're there, taking care of them, they feel that they're getting good care and that they're happy. But even though we had scientists and doctors, veterinarians come in and say the head bobbing shows distress, Billy was bobbing his head. And also, no matter how much evidence we showed, it was also, there are very sincere zoo people who really love the animals, and then there
I
are
know.
other people involved with the zoos who feel that it helps the public, even though now we don't need live animals, we have video for them to see the animals. But they just they didn't really grasp, or they didn't want to grasp what we were saying. And in the end, it was kind of touch and go. I think the city council was really debating. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, somebody gives a huge donation to it to improve Billy's cage. And that made the city council decide to keep Billy.
Well, I'm sure, and I'm not an expert, but whatever they could possibly do within the small space of, comparing a zoo to the jungle, I don't know what,
It's really sad too.
they could possibly do to make it work. Go ahead,
And
I'm
not
sorry.
only that, they made it look better. They put some trees. But here's what I heard. I don't go to the zoo, but this is what I've been told. The trees are across a little gully. The elephant can't even get near the trees.
That's
the trees
right.
are for decoration.
I've heard that too.
And then they
I've heard
added
that
more
too.
elephants in there, as though that's going to make things better, and they're just more crowded.
We want to invite the LA Zoo on at any time. Of course, we feel like a lot of people feel like elephants should not be in zoos, but we do have to invite them on to give their side of the story. And so they're invited on at any time. Yeah, we've talked about this issue before. It isn't just the LA Zoo, like you say. They have the argument that they think that as long as the elephants are being well kept, well taken care of, but who's making that judgment? That's based on human judgment, not on an animal point of view, which is what you bring through in the book. So maybe we should shift over. Before we do, I do want to show Sheldrick quickly the website where people could go and find out more about this wonderful organization. There are several. Elephants Guardians of Los Angeles is another one. Help me out here. Name some, if you can think of any of the names, but we will list them.
Now. Save Nosy
Yes,
Now.
yes.
In Defense of Elephants.
Yes.
Yeah, there's, Joyce Poole over in Kenya, she has been studying elephants for 40 years, especially elephant communication. And she has Elephant Voices is the name of her group. And you should check that out. She has a wonderful video log of all these different behaviors of elephants. And she studied it, and she could say when they're doing this, when they feel like this.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need for the public to see and know. And, the wonderful work that you're doing, our network, what we're doing is curating all these wonderful creative people with a voice for the animals and for the environment to build awareness about what is going on, and through creative means, because people, with all the things going on in the world, are so turned off to bad news. They hear it so often every day. And it's so inspiring, the kind of, to have someone like you come along. Thank you so much, Georgia, for your work, really. And,
My pleasure.
Just to come along and lead by example here. I mean, the mere fact that teaching girls to be leaders, I mean, that's who could be against that, right? And all the things that you're doing, and they all tie together. I see how and you say this in your book, how we're all connected and how everything is connected. And it's so true. Do you want to comment on that?
Oh yeah, I think that the girls were so, when I first started teaching the girls, we would sit outside, and we lived in the Quale County, which is on the Indian Ocean, and it's a beautiful little area, and there's monkeys everywhere, three different kinds of monkeys. One is the endangered colobus monkey, which is beautiful. So we'd be sitting there outside, and the monkeys would come over, and they'd come right close to us. And I'd say to the girls, who knows what kind of monkey that is? Nobody knew. They
Oh, wow.
they just didn't even have the curiosity to know. Nobody had ever said to them, look, isn't that tree beautiful? Or what kind of monkey is that, or anything. But once they got started thinking about it and experiencing it, and there was a colobus conservation group that helped the monkeys. We went to visit them, and besides Sheldrick, and we cleaned the beach, and everything was a big lesson, but it was all totally infused with their environment. And they were happy. They were happy. And two of them went, I sent to college after that. The two oldest
Lovely.
ones who had finished high school, I paid for them to go to college. And one of them is a teacher today. And my goal after my book becomes the movie and is to found a school, especially in one of the areas where there's a lot of human animal conflict, and it's called the Elephant Matriarch School for Mothers and Children. And it's going to have all the subjects infused with lessons on nature and animals.
That would be
And
lovely.
I would
be
hope
lovely.
that would become a goal, a beacon in the country, that other people could get inspiration and do similar things. And there are people right now, other conservationists and other people trying to work in that direction also. But
Yes. And I think
they
it'd be
could
great
use.
if some filmmakers, such as James Cameron, who's done, his wife Susie has done the Amazing Muse School, with the same kind of, philosophy, teaching American children, not quite, but plant-based diet, respect for the environment, compassion, all those good things, to spread that around the world. If some of these filmmakers would come on and help you out with your movie,
so.
that would be amazing, your screenplay, and I think it will happen. And I think that's a great way for these people with lots of money, if they want to put their money in a place where it'll be effective. Frankly, I think, the smaller activities and organizations and efforts that are made, meaning not the huge, mega charities, but the smaller hands-on charities are the ones that are going to do the most good. And that's what should be, people like you are the ones that should be backed and supported, in my opinion. And hopefully,
you.
I'm sure others feel the same. Can you talk a little bit about the baby elephants that you adopted and how that all works? Because people go, oh, so you have like baby elephants somewhere that you're having people take care of. Tell me how that all works, if you would.
Well, the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust has been saving baby elephants for decades. And it started by Daphne Sheldrick. She married a ranger. And that was when they first started Tsavo National Park, which is the largest national park in Kenya. And she lived there with her husband, and she started rescuing babies that were orphaned, just all different kind of babies. And she actually rescued a baby elephant, the first one. But and she learned through her experience, in some ways very sorrowful experience, because she loved the baby loved her, followed her everywhere. But one of her daughters was getting married in another city, so she had to go to the wedding. So she had to leave the place where the elephant was only for 3 days. The elephant got so depressed that she died.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that was because the elephants are very emotional, anyway, that was very sorrowful for her, but it made her realize that these babies, when she finally organized the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. It was called the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust after her husband, who died prematurely. But she has many caretakers for the elephants, and they all take turns. They sleep with the babies at night in their little, they all have their own little place. But she, excuse me, just a second.
Sure, take your time. Here's some of the babies, by the way.
They don't get attached to one person because they all take turns being with them. So if you're lucky enough to go to Kenya, which I highly recommend if you can possibly do it, you must go to the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, and you can see the babies who are there. They have babies, and they have, and they're right on the edge of the Nairobi National Park, which is like a big, excuse me, it's a wild area. So they take the babies every day from the nursery, they walk them across, and they start to learn to forage in the trees, and they just start learning their own lessons, and they learn from each other. When they when they first adopt them, usually it's because their mother was killed or died from a drought, which there's a terrible drought going on right now.
Let me just stop you for a second. I'll play the video, give your voice a rest for a moment, and we'll see what we see here.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is when the elephant is first discovered that it's alone. A baby elephant is alone, and they have scouting planes that fly everywhere to try to find these kinds of elephants. Then they go there and they put them in the little plane. They take them back to the nursery. They're teaching them, even helping them learn how to forage, which because they don't have their mother to do that.
That's so great.
No, they're wonderful. They're wonderful, wonderful. And the amazing thing is, after they're about 2 or 3 years old, when they get a little bigger, they take them away from the nursery. They take them out to another place in the middle of the Savo Park. They have two outposts there. And they finish growing up there, and they still have their bottles, but they're not as often. They still have caretakers, but not as many. And they start wandering out, and they start meeting wild elephants. And that's how eventually, when they're ready, it could take several more years, they just go and join a herd of elephants, or they form their own herd. And they've actually had 50 baby elephants who were born to former orphans who went into the wild. They had a baby, and then they come back and show the caretakers their baby.
Wow, I've heard that before.
It's amazing.
We're having a little noise problem here. Hopefully it'll be, let me shut them. Oh my goodness. My neighbor's dogs go crazy.
Oh no. Wow.
Anyway, well, that's live video for you folks. Anyway, wow, that is so interesting. I had no idea that they actually go to that length to get them rehabilitated back into society.
Oh yeah, they're amazing. And
I
not
mean,
only
into
that,
their society, I should say. I'm a little
there
thrown
are
here
the
by the
Elephant
job.
Society. They also
Yeah.
have mobile veterinary units that go out into the wild, and any animal that has trouble, they help them. They also have other units that go out and just take out wires. People try to poach them with little cat. They get trapped in wires. All kinds of animals. They
All
take out the
kinds of,
wires.
oh my gosh. So how people can, of course, go, maybe we should just show quickly here one more thing, how they can donate. They can go to this site, which we will put up, and you can make a donation to help these folks do their good work that they're doing. Because certainly we need more people doing what they're doing. And maybe the government, we can eventually get the government to help.
You can
Go
adopt a
ahead.
baby elephant for $50 a year. And
Oh
then
my gosh.
once they'll show you all the babies that they have. You can say which one you want to adopt. And every month they'll send you updates.
That is so exciting, and I think it's a great gift. I think your book would be a great Christmas gift
Thank
for
you.
kids. Shop early. And it's available, by the way, on Amazon. Is that correct? Let's show that cover again so people can remember. Terriers in the Jungle. It certainly will grip your heart. You'll get a little bit of you'll get a lot of a tour of Kenya and Africa from the viewpoint of two beautiful pups here that were rescued themselves. They both started off with kind of a rough start. Is that correct?
Yes, they were both street dogs who were captured and put in shelters. And unfortunately, and Romeo was wounded. He had one of his legs was crushed, and he could barely move. I don't know how he even survived on his own, but he was picked up at some point and taken to a shelter, but it was not a no-kill shelter. And they isolated him. They didn't do anything to help him, but then they were going to euthanize him. And at the last minute, he was rescued by a wonderful rescue group, the Dexter Foundation. And they rescue dogs who are almost going to get euthanized. And they took Romeo, and then they took Romeo to a vet, and the vet wanted to amputate his leg. But the leader of the Dexter Foundation is actually a doctor. And she talked to the vet and told him to put a steel plate in his leg. And that's what he did. So Romeo has a steel plate in his leg. He still limps once in a while. But other than that, he's great.
He's a bionic dog.
Yes.
And we have a picture that kind of leads into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. These two wonderful artists that you met in Kenya, and we want to show a couple of their illustrations. And also you mentioned, we'll show people, and then you mentioned that their work is available for sale. So do you want to kind of talk about how you met them and got involved in having them illustrate?
Oh, well.
Now, is this Hilton or Moses?
This is Hilton, and this is based on a photograph that I took. And this is Romeo and Roxie, and they're playing with Amigo. This other dog is named Amigo, and he's called a Kenyan beach dog. He doesn't really have an owner. The owner of the apartment where we stayed kind of overlooked him, but he didn't even live there. So the staff was responsible for feeding him, but a lot of times he would escape and run down to the beach. And this dog was so independent. He would run down to the beach by himself, jump in the water, take a swim, roll in the sand, and then come back when he felt like it.
Well, maybe he's got in there. The rest of us can learn from being a little bit more in the moment, so to speak. So show other illustration here. Is this also Hilton?
Yes, that's also Hilton. And this is Hilton is on Facebook, and he sells his art. He posts new art that he does on Facebook. and he can send it to the United States too. And I met him when I was in Kenya. I saw one of his pictures I wanted to have on my wall, and so I contacted him, and he didn't live that far away, so he actually came over to where I was staying and brought the picture, and we became friendly. And I thought of him when I was, I wrote the book. When I first wrote the book, I wasn't thinking about illustrations at all. It was kind of at the last minute. I just had an inspiration that this would be really great with illustrations. So I contacted Hilton. This was after I was already back in the States. And also Moses. Moses is another one I met over there. And I
Yes.
love
Is this
his work. His
Moses?
work is very whimsical and
Is that
beautiful.
it?
Yeah, that's one of his pieces. And
Okay.
I have two of his pieces like that in my house. And I have one of Hilton. And so they both agreed to help. It's the people in Kenya, most of them really have to struggle to make a living, and so they're very grateful when you consign them, with some work. And hopefully now they're going to start meeting some other authors in Kenya, and maybe they will get commissions to do other books over there, and maybe other people too. That's also Moses, yeah. And I love both of their works a lot, and they're great.
Yeah. And
And
people
they
can
add,
buy it if they would like, right? They
yeah,
can contact
yeah,
him.
yeah.
I wonder if they're aware of all the online places you can sell. You have to be careful. But there are some galleries online, maybe they could contact. But I think a good way to kind of get the word out for them is through people share this out and share this. Please share out this video, folks. We're almost through, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of time to kind of think for a moment what you'd like to make sure that our audience takes away today from your visit. One thing that I would say is that I think, the work that you do is a great example of creative activism. This show is all about activism and what people can do to make a change in the world, particularly for animals and the environment. You can use your talents, your God-given talent, whatever that may be, whether it be accounting or, creative stuff, whatever it is, you can make a difference. And there's so many ways we, as the privileged Americans and Westerners that we can all get involved. It's so gratifying, and a little bit makes so much of a difference. And I
It
think you're
does.
such a great example.
We don't even
So
realize
thank
it.
you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having the show and highlighting this kind of work. I think it's so important, and it's hard to get the word out sometimes, so this is really helping. So I thank
Good.
you very much for all your work and all the effort you put into it.
Thank you. I will show this picture of you with the elephant here. But go ahead. Anything you want to talk about?
That's one of
Maybe more
my, okay, this
Yeah.
picture is, this is Nilai. He's one of my babies that I adopted when he was littler. And then he was sent out to the outpost. So they sent him not to the biggest outpost, Ithumba, but to a smaller one called Voi. And it just so happened that Voi was closer to where I was staying. It was still a few hours away, but I could get there. And so I went to visit Nilai a lot, and it was just wonderful to be so close to him. And I met other wonderful elephants there too. And I just love the elephants so much. And when you're with them, you could feel their energy. Their brain is so big. An elephant's brain is bigger than a whole human baby. And you can just feel their energy, and it's like a bath that just washes over you. And I
Wow.
just felt so happy around the elephants every single time. And if you ever have a chance to go there, Kenya, I believe, I've only been to Kenya. I've never been to the South African countries where there are elephants. But I must say that Kenya, I highly recommend it. They have a wonderful tourist system, and they have the only country that does not allow trophy hunting or poaching. And they have strict rules. There's a lot of great conservationists there. And There's the Amboseli Trust with Cynthia Moss. She's wonderful. She started that organization many years ago, also to study elephants, and she studied families of elephants through the years. And there's just so much there to appreciate. You can never get tired of being there. I've been there, I think, 7 times, and then I lived there.
Wow.
So it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I highly recommend. And it puts you back in touch with nature and makes you realize humans are not the apex that we think we are. I mean, we're
No.
smart, but as far as we're not in touch with nature. Daphne Sheldrick even says in her book, humans are out of touch with nature, and to be around nature to that extent, and elephants to me are the apex. Because of elephants, we have forests. They were on Earth much longer than we were, and they traveled to every country. And elephants, they're so big that even their footprint can be a micro ecosystem for little tadpoles and different animals. And they're always eating because they're big and they're hungry, but their digestive system isn't that good. So they're always pooping, and their poop contains whole seeds and branches and leaves. So wherever they poop, new growth comes up. And it's even been studied by the International Monetary Fund. I recently learned that an elephant is worth several $1 million just for being an elephant, because they help the trees grow, and they because they march through like the jungly parts. The forest elephants, when they go through there, they break down the small growth, and that allows the trees to get bigger and have more carbon capture. It also allows more animals to go into the forest and live because there's an openings. I mean, they just help the world in so many ways. They know how to find water, and they give it to other animals too. They even help humans. I mean, they're just magnificent.
We do want to differentiate here, though, because there's a lot of tourism travel involving animal entertainment, including elephants, which is not what we're suggesting at all. And I know most of my
elephants in the wild only.
Our viewers are familiar with that, but many people go on these things, refuse to ride. We want to emphasize: do not ride elephants. Do not be involved in any kind of animal entertainment. They need to be where they belong, right?
Exactly.
We want to make sure we specify.
Any animal that's doing tricks has been beaten into submission. I mean, behind the scenes. You don't believe it. You say, oh, look at that. No, please. That's not what the elephant wants to do. The best thing you can do for an elephant is leave him alone and just help him to preserve his environment,
Yes. So if someone wants to go on a trip and like this, what is the right way to do it? Can you help with that?
Well, I mean, when you say a trip, it depends on where you're going, but if
if they want to, yeah, go ahead. Like, what would be a good way to go and see?
I recommend Kenya. I have to admit, I've never been to Asia myself. I've always been drawn to the African elephant. I know a lot of people love Asian elephants too, and there are elephants in the wild there, but unfortunately they also have forced them into slave labor of logging. And then they also are the ones who started the box where they put the baby elephant in for 24 hours and feed them. It's just horrible. They don't do that in Africa, thank God. But of course, in Africa, their poaching is starting very high again. And so many elephants are being killed every day in other countries. It just breaks your heart. And I don't know how we stop that. I really don't. We went through that back in 2012, 2013. I went to Kenya then. When the poaching crisis went up in 2012, everywhere I went, I saw dead animals. And I was like, I couldn't go back. I didn't go back again until 2017 because it was so sad,
And
But
I
now,
think these countries need to know that if they want their tourism and their economy to grow. And that's another way of getting this info and educating the government officials that we will refuse to travel. We don't want to go to places and see horrific things like that. But just back to my question for a minute, not to pin you down, but I guess you go online and do some research and find maybe a sanctuary to visit. Is that a better way to do it? To like if someone that would want to travel to Kenya, would they maybe contact Sheldrick and
Sheldrick doesn't have its own
tours?
tour industry. They're not tourist. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
open the doors, at certain times for tourists, and they do have in their outposts. They've created places to stay, which is great. But there are also, if you look for the tours that are run by the Maasai people in the Masai Mara, Maasai people are very close to nature. They're really, original people, and they live close to the earth. And they have a lot of good programs. In Masai Mara, you can see so many animals there, and also Amboseli. I would highly recommend going there. And if you can find a tour that's involved with the Maasai people, I think all the better. There are many now that have started their own tours instead of going to these huge tour companies. If you look for, Maasai-led tours and see what you see, and just compare and look, don't just grab the first thing, but look around a little bit. There's some great ones, really great.
Well, we'll put a little note in the description. We'll put a little link of where they could go on Google and search that, spell that word for them, and Maasai, we'll spell the word out, and I'll try to help people that might want to go take a trip and help spread the word. But an easy way to do that without spending any money, not very much time, is to share out this video. Folks, if you would, I think a lot of people will be interested to hear about this book and this creative activism and how you can make a difference. It's not difficult, and you can have a great time doing it, rewarding
Thank
time.
you. And if there's any big movie producers out there who would like to make a big blockbuster movie with beautiful scenes of Africa and animals, I'd say it could be as big as Lion King or Jungle Book, but it also
and they can reach you here.
Poignant messages about life and animals and our interaction with them.
Yes, and they can email you at this address if they have,
Yes,
or go to your website.
Yeah,
This
there's
is
a
your
lot more
website.
info on my website, pictures and other information.
How you can get the book, and you can just go on Amazon and order the book.
Yes, you can. You can go on Amazon and order the book. If you want to get a signed copy of the book, you can contact me at my email address, and then we'll work it out. I could send you a copy, and but you can also just get one on Amazon much faster. So it's up to you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're just finishing up now. Georgia, is there any last words you want to offer to our audience before we say goodbye for today?
Well, also, I just like to put the thought in some people's heads. Hopefully, when we get the school going in Kenya, one of my ideas about it is to bring over conservationists as guest lecturers and, maybe stay at the school for a short time and do a little program for the girls.
That would be fantastic. And maybe someday bring the girls here so people can meet them. And wouldn't it be great? Great press stories, get them out in the media and get more people involved.
Though. Everything is very expensive today, as you know.
Everything
just
is,
flying there and staying anywhere and everything. So yeah, one step at a time and see what we could do. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it was so great having you. Thanks for being on. I will be putting links up, folks, as usual, pinning them to the top, where you can get in touch with Georgia, where you can buy the book, and other information about some of the wonderful organizations that are doing, that are involved in elephant conservation and wildlife conservation.
And
so thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.